RTX Corp, commonly known as Raytheon, has agreed to pay $200 million to resolve allegations of violations of U.S. export laws, including unauthorized transfers of defense technology to China, Russia, and Iran. The fine addresses issues involving sensitive data related to U.S. military aircraft. Let's find out more. The fine stems from failure to abide by the international traffic in arms regulations by poorly classifying and controlling exports of defense articles, including classified ones, the State Department said. The State Department notification released on Friday was the first of the 3 legal matters and included mistakenly providing intellectual property and technology to China. One of the instances involved providing Chinese citizens information about an aluminum display housing component of the F-22 Raptor fighter aircraft in Shanghai. The information was determined to be more sensitive than the RTX employees initially believed. As part of the resolution of each of these 3 matters, we will be required to retain independent compliance monitors over the 3-year term of the agreements, the company said on the earnings call. Half of the fine will be spent to fund the compliance program. Apart from all the assumptions, I think we should consider several points to evaluate the realistic situation of the causes, consequences, and beneficiaries on both sides. First of all, why these private company is regulated by a state agency. International Traffic in Arms Regulation Agency (ITAR) was created alongside Arms Export Control Act (AECA) in 1976 during the Cold War with the Eastern Bloc. The corresponding equivalents would be the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance (CMEA) and the General Directorate for the Export of Military Equipment (GOSE). In addition to Raytheon, there are an array of companies on the military and aircraft affairs. Given the character of these activities and its scope, would be much coherent to keep them rather centralized than privatized if the concern is foreign trading policy. Raytheon works in collaboration with the National Science Foundation. Second, why is the F-22 Raptor fighter aircraft aluminum display a concern? Well, the material itself, it wouldn't but much concerning the disclosed information attached to it. To bring this to the ground, during this operation, Raytheon might not be providing any materials or commodities, but rather information. Any piece of data could be considered, physically or digitally, as an export. Due to the obsessive dominance and interventionism of some U.S. presidents on one side and the relentless growth of Chinese tech, economically as intellectually in the other, could accelerate the market takeover during the next years. Given this context, along with the potential leaks to these eastern countries, is the United States' biggest concern its ability to generate debt and intervene as needed? Or do you think this was a deliberate leak to justify closely monitoring this material in these eastern countries? Let me know in the comments section. Regarding the fines, Neil G. Mitchell, Jr., Chief Financial Officer of RTX, has given a hint of the rough quantity of the fines, saying, "In addition, we recorded a pre-tax charge of $285 million related to voluntarily disclosed export controls compliance matters primarily identified during the integration of Rockwell Collins and Raytheon Company into RTX, including matters which are expected to be addressed in a consent agreement with the Department of State. As part of the resolution of each of these 3 matters, we will be required to retain independent compliance monitors over the 3-year term of the agreements. In total, we expect to pay about $1 billion related to these matters this year and have incorporated that into our updated free cash flow outlook for the year." Christopher T. Callio, a president and chief executive officer, when was asked about the defense side problem programs still remaining on Raytheon, said, "You had mentioned a handful of other, I'll call them, classified development, fixed-price development programs that we've been talking about. I would say those are much different in terms of risk profile than the one we took action on here. Those have some important milestones here in 24 and in 25, but we feel like we've got a much better handle on those than the one we're talking about here." Why bring this up? It seems Raytheon is facing issues with whistleblowers. Some might think it's unlikely, given the strong career alignment, company NDAs, and the integrity and professionalism expected in these positions. But when the situation is examined more closely, things look quite different. Take the case of Eric Hecker, a former Raytheon employee who worked at one of their research facilities, specifically the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station in Antarctica. Check it out.
Really going on. The science folk there, which I've seen this in other facilities as well, they are very egocentric. It's very easy to rub the back of a scientist, say you're doing a great job, you're going to save the world, everything here is to support what you're doing. But I started noticing that every scientist was saying the same story to me. Every time I would take the key, open the door, walk into a compartment, discuss with them what they were doing in there, I kept hearing, this is the most important work at the facility. Everybody here is to support what I'm doing. I said, okay. I hear you loud and clear. And then I go to the next room and I'd hear the same thing. And I started to paint this picture in my own head that everybody here is bamboozled. Nobody here has a clue what's actually going on, but they sure believe that they're the most important thing here.
So what was actually going on? What do you think was actually going on?
Directed energy weapons platforms operating under the false pretenses of science. That's what's actually going on at South Pole Station. There are technologies and weapons-grade technologies on this planet that the average citizen cannot even begin to wrap their brains around. And that's why I'm speaking out. That's my motivation.
The average citizen, as well as specialized scientists, might agree that remote places on Earth can conceal high-tech assets. Before Eric Hecker, quite a few whistleblowers have shared their stories from various entities. While it's unlikely, it's not impossible for someone previously uninterested in the topic to suddenly start using precise terminology and become personally invested. What do you think? Eric Hecker is far from being a scientific authority, though he allegedly has first-hand information. When asked about the likelihood of simulating an earthquake, he confidently correlates this to the IceCube Neutrino Observatory, developed by the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
You're thinking their motives are negative. Why do you think that?
A, because they're secret.
Okay.
It's not transparent.
Because they're secret.
Yes, their motives, their actions are secret. So to me, that speaks volumes right off the bat. If transparency was involved, I'd be a lot less concerned. But when things like the Christchurch earthquakes occur, and that is secreted away, that was South Pole Station. That was the start of the IceCube Neutrino detector. The season that I was there, it went from construction to operations and maintenance. And when they first operated it, they caused 2 accidental earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. So this is weapons-grade stuff. Since that time, we've had leaders, American leaders themselves, multiple times threaten other nation states with earthquakes if they didn't get in line. Those nations didn't get in line, and then they received earthquakes. So this is stuff that's happening in real time right around us for people that are paying attention.
Nations that didn't get in line, they got earthquakes.
Turkey was one of them.
The big Turkey earthquake.
He suggests that Joe Biden threatened Turkey with a potential earthquake if the country didn't follow U.S. directives. Initially, I found this hard to believe, but after searching online, I found a video related to the claim. Have a look.
Can support those elements of the Turkish leadership that still exist and get more from them and embolden them to be able to take on and defeat Erdogan.
Biden doesn't specifically mention this. He clearly expresses a desire to influence the political direction of the country. What makes this even more concerning is his intent to make it look natural, rather than as overt as a coup.
What I think we should be doing is taking a very different approach to him now, making it clear that we support opposition leadership, making it clear that we are in a position where we have a way in which was working for a while to integrate the Kurdish population who wanted to participate in the process in their parliament, etc. Because we have to speak out about what we in fact think are wrong. It has to pay a price. It has to pay a price for whether or not we're going to continue to sell certain weapons to him. In fact, if he has the air defense system that they're flying F-15 through to see how they can try to figure out how to do it. So I'm very concerned about it. I'm very concerned about it. But I'm still of the view that if we were to engage more directly like I was doing with them, that we can support those elements of the Turkish leadership that still exist and get more from them and embolden them to be able to take on and defeat Erdogan, not by a coup, but by the electoral process. We have to make it clear that if they're looking to, because at the end of the day, Turkey doesn't want to have to rely on Russia. They've had a bite out of that apple a long time ago. But they're going to understand that we're not going to continue to play with them the way we have. So I am very concerned. I am very concerned. I'm very concerned about our airfields and access to them as well. And I think it takes an awful lot of work for us to be able to get together with our allies in the region and deal with how we isolate his actions in the region, particularly in the Eastern Mediterranean relating to oil and a whole range of other things which take too long to win.
There are a few things to consider. Biden's statement dates back to 2020, so this was probably before his cognitive decline. As PBD points out in this podcast, he couldn't find any recent footage of Biden explicitly threatening Turkey with an earthquake. In addition, both New Zealand and Turkey are regions with high seismic activity due to their proximity to tectonic plate boundaries. It's not a huge stretch to foresee frequent seismic activity in these countries. However, Eric Hecker provides details about the difficulty of provoking earthquakes artificially.
What do you need to create an earthquake? How technical of a process is it?
Not that technical at all, from my understanding. The folks that I've spoken to, both inside and outside of the program, in specifics to the ice cube neutrino detector, the statement was made that because there's 5,160 of what are called DOMs, these digital optical modules embedded in the ice. Think of them simply as microtransmitters, but now working together. So it's a phased array transmitter. And they clarified that at the fault line, where earthquakes, where the faults are always in displeasure of each other almost, it doesn't take much added energy to push them over the edge. They're constantly always looking to make an earthquake at certain points on the planet. So certain points, it's actually really easy to initiate an earthquake if you have a delivery mechanism.
As Eric Hecker suggests, these 5,160 domes are not only receiving signals, but also emitting up to 247 volts each, which totals 1 to 170,000 volts. I'm not an electrotopographical physics orography engineer, but I highly doubt that the ice cube neutrino detector, on its own, could deliberately deliver such force as to have a short-term impact on tectonic plates. I researched what 1 million volts might look like, and here are some of the findings. Another element Eric Hecker found in Antarctica was the extremely low-frequency transmitter. These emitters caught my attention due to their preposterous wavelength range, between 10,000 to 100,000 kilometers. They're capable of penetrating seawater, which allows them to communicate with submarines. In my opinion, this could be a significant threat if combined with the power of the ice cube neutrino detector. Could these be the targeted assets monitored by Raytheon, or are there even bigger threats on the horizon for the United States? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. If you enjoy, like, share, and subscribe as new topics will arise. Thanks for watching. See you next time.